It's time to do a review of the tekken 250, which I got from Nairobi Power Bikes. Had an excellent experience there. I've been riding the bike for 1,864 kilometers in about 3 weeks. It has a battery charger that works pretty well. You can plug 2 things in it. You have to make sure to close this cap when you go for a car wash, though, for sure. I installed this 2-ball mount so I can have room for my Insta360 camera and my phone. I mostly have criticisms of this motorcycle, but it goes along with the fact that it's a very inexpensive motorcycle, Chinese import bike. So for the 355,000 shillings that I paid for it, it's probably still a good deal. Now, my number one complaint is the luggage boxes fall off. And after the first one, I thought it was a fluke. It had pulled the wires out. But you can see from the damage, I thought maybe I didn't lock it properly, but then it was definitely locked securely. Didn't even go over a bump. So now I have this strap on here, which I've seen other people do for this bike. Quite frustrating, but I guess that's what you expect for a cheap bike. Now, another complaint I have about this bike is it's very loud, and perhaps that's something that some bikers prefer. Dual exhaust for a single cylinder, but it's so loud. Hearing protection is definitely required when you're going to be going on highway speeds. Another issue is that the engine guards, which are great, they interfere with your foot placement. So you can see that part of the foot peg is being blocked by the engine guard. So if you're sitting, it's fine, but if you have to stand, part of your foot is hanging off the side of the foot peg. Next is the kickstand is way too high or at a steep angle. So if you're on a level surface, the bike will stand, but if it's anything slightly uphill, the bike will fall over. So constantly looking for a place so that your kickstand is on the downhill side. So I think I might go to a welder and have the kickstand shortened, maybe a 1/4 inch. Another issue which I'm having, which other bikers seem to have had, is the chain has to get tightened on a pretty regular basis. So I've had it tightened 3 times now, so I don't know if the chain is stretching or if the bolts are just not locking in properly that hold the tension on the chain. But now that I'm aware of it, I just make sure to keep an eye on it and get it adjusted as needed. The suspension on this bike is adjustable, but it's not very easy to adjust. When I received it from the factory, it was perfect for me, but as soon as I was carrying anybody, it would bottom out if you hit a bump going a little bit too fast. So I had it stiffened up yesterday, and I'll see how it goes from there. The luggage box that came with it matched this, but it was really small, quite anemic. So I bought this this bigger one from Nairobi Power Bikes. I forget how much it cost, but I think they call it the 60 liter, and it does have a gasket in the lid. It can't quite hold 2 full-size helmets, but I get by with just the one helmet. Another thing that I'm finding is that when you're on this bike by yourself is just fine. But if you're carrying a passenger, they're going to slowly slide forward and your nuts are going to be getting squished on the tank. So they have to constantly hold themselves backwards. And if they're a larger person, you're going to be squished no matter what. So this bike is really not meant for carrying a passenger. Short trips, it does just fine. But I'm getting by with it. Now, as far as the suspension goes, it seems okay generally. When I've let other people ride it, they've commented that the suspension was pretty amazing, that they didn't even really feel bumps, which is great. Now, as far as fuel mileage, I haven't been tracking it, but it seems like the fuel mileage is not that great, but I am a pretty aggressive rider, so that's probably more my fault. Let's see, and one last thing that I wanted to mention. I had it serviced, doing an oil change, that's great. The oil filter is located inside here. I couldn't find it, but the technician at the bike shop knew where it was and had a filter for it and got it changed out. But one thing that's really a pain, underneath this seat is the air box, so you have to take off these plastics on both sides, take off the seat, and then there are screws holding the airbox lid on that are not accessible. And they're Phillips screws. You have to go in at a steep angle with a screwdriver to get to them. And they're almost stripped already from just one cycle of being changed out. When I go back to the US, I'm going to come back with some hex-headed bolts that can go in place of those Phillips screws, so at least you can access it with a wrench from the side. The turn indicators, I like how they're pretty good here on the grips and out here on the boxes. That I feel like they're pretty good. The ones that are inside here, they're so tiny. I don't think other drivers would even see them. Now on this hand grip here, it does show flashers. It does not work, so I'm not sure if it ever came with a feature or if it's just faulty. Now the windshield works really well. I feel like I'm in a good bubble of air, but even after a month the plastic is starting to yellow. So I'm hoping that the plastic doesn't deteriorate in the sun over time. Otherwise, for the price, I'm saying it's a good bike, and I definitely recommend getting a hold of Gladys at Nairobi Power Bikes. She will definitely take care of you. Thanks a lot.